Okay, issue 4, a panelist potpourri. But let's start with the news that President Trump has declared a national emergency. That has happened, actually, as we have been taping. Al, do you think that is appropriate for the president to do that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
You're really springing this on us.
Yeah.
I think potentially. I mean, this virus is really getting out of control to a degree at this point. I mean, you look at when you have the Masters shutting down their golf tournament, that's really a sign. Every other sporting league and Broadway even has shut things down. And more pressingly, you have schools that are closing across the country. The Catholic Church in D.C. is allowing services this weekend. I think that's really a sign of things to come, and I don't blame the president one bit.
Elena.
Well, the president did declare a national emergency once before because he wanted to get his money for his wall. That was a phony crisis. He was resistant to declare it this time because he thought it would panic people. Well, now people are panicked,
right,
and justifiably so. And so, yes, it's the right thing to do. I mean, we have a lot of laws and regulations, and you can cut through a lot of that when you have an emergency. So,
and do you
right
think he
thing
waited?
to do.
How much do you think President Trump's electoral calculations are playing into his decision-making on coronavirus?
Oh, I think everything is through the prism of his reelection. And, he sees the coronavirus as threatening the stock market,
right,
which is his main claim to fame to be reelected. So, yes, he's been looking at this through the wrong prism, an economic prism. I think he's being pulled into the reality of what he's facing, which is a genuine health crisis. It's not a hoax by the Democrats or people wanting to bring down his presidency.
Karen.
I think that the critics, he has to walk a fine line because he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't, as far as reacting or overreacting or underreacting. So I think he is listening to the health experts who are around him. He is following their advice. He's not moving faster. He needs to make sure that he's got the correct data. As I said, the data from China was unreliable, but reports of much more reliable data from Italy, South Korea, and Japan, who have been much more transparent with their outbreaks, has been helpful for our experts here. And as it relates to immigration and the previous national emergency, as Fauci and other health experts have said, border control, including border walls, are actually quite effective at stopping the flow of infected people. And so it's actually presents a stronger, robust case for him.
What to that point, though, of President Trump actually really being focused about re-election more than perhaps national leadership? Is that unfair?
I think that it's all one and the same. I mean, when you see people like Joe Biden, who is stepping up, even though he's not the president, pretending like he is, it's impossible to say that things are not being politicized. So I think it's
when you are,
it is an election year.
Clarence.
Well, where I come from, we have a phrase called closing the barn door after the cattle have already run out or the horses have run out. That's how I feel about closing the border at a time when the virus is already here. And I know President Trump made a big deal out of that, but said nothing about testing. Mm-hmm. And that's what was on everybody's mind. When can I get tested? And we're starting to get that question answered. He's not answering it. People in Congress are answering it now. I'm glad somebody is. But at a crisis time, even before you've got data, before you've got a whole lot of information, first thing people want is to be reassured that everything is okay in the long run. You know, after 9/11, George W. Bush certainly made his mark getting up there. They're saying, well, I hear you, and those people who did this are going to hear it too. That's all it took. He didn't need any data, et cetera, et cetera. And so, President Trump is learning this job. Maybe someday he'll figure it out.
Yeah, the address the other evening had all the trappings of an Oval Office address. You saw all the family pictures behind him, and he's sitting at the Resolute desk. But if you noticed, he was going like this with his thumbs. He really conveyed a nervousness, and there was a grimness to it. And then, of course, he tosses in, ad-libs the fact that we're not going to have any cargo from Europe. And according to the news accounts, immediately after he realized that that was a mistake, and so everybody had to go clean that up. And that basically sent the stock market tumbling the next day. So years from now, when they examine how this has been handled, this is going to be a case about presidential leadership, and he's done just about everything incorrectly, frankly.
Oh.
It's kind of like a New York thought process, I think. He views it through enemies. And right now he has two main enemies. One is Joe Biden, who is likely going to be the Democratic nominee, and the other one is this coronavirus, which is threatening that prospect. And it's also threatening the economy. It's threatening everything about the stock market. And, especially in the stock market, the president routinely, weekly probably tweets out, look at the record highs in the stock market. Well, you live by the stock market, you're going to die by the stock market on occasion. President Obama, he didn't do that as much. He didn't cite the stock market as much, or Trump does, and that's going to be a problem for him at this point.
Well, I think there are lots of other metrics to look at besides just the stock market.
Well, that's when he points to a lot.
Sure,
I guess that's why I bring it up.
But he also points to record low unemployment among Latinos, women, African Americans, record low unemployment among people without a high school degree.
I'll wait for the next report on unemployment, frankly, but we'll see.
Sure, we'll see. But it's still at incredibly record lows, below 4%. I mean, that's enviable around the world.
Well, in
and not to
2008,
mention there are also metrics.
In 2008, Barack Obama reassured the country as a candidate when he was running against John McCain, who was a sitting U.S. Senator, the Republican nominee, when McCain seemed undone by the nosedive in the economy and said the fundamentals are strong. He canceled his campaign, and Obama conveyed a steadiness. And you said earlier that Biden is pretending to be president. He's the likely nominee. Once he accepts the nomination, he will be briefed as though he is a parallel president. And so people want to see, if we elect you, what are you going to be like and what would you do? And so he needs to show how he would be handling this situation if he were president.
Well,
it's an appropriate reaction.
He also needed to show, if I can just interject, he needed to show he can look presidential with all these rumors being pushed by the right about how he's losing it and all this. He had to show he hasn't lost it.
Well, as I said earlier, Biden's speech was pretty much ripped and cribbed from the policies coming out of the Trump White House as it already stands. So there's that. And then as far as 2008, if we want to talk about comparisons, I actually think that Biden is more like John McCain. If you look at how McCain's campaign in 2008 was on life support, and it was only through New Hampshire that it was resurrected just barely by the skin of his teeth. That's what Biden's seeing now. Biden is on life support in terms of just politically. He coasted into South Carolina on fumes, and it was only because of that the establishment then fell behind him. But the Democratic Party is incredibly fractured right now, and I was looking at data from, if I can finish.
Very quickly.
No, if I can finish, 12% of Bernie voters voted for Trump, and there were key swing states, 3 key swing states where it was the differential of the margin of victory. So I think that the fracture between the anti-establishment mood of Sanders voters, many who are not traditional Democrats, this is why the Trump campaign is starting to appeal to them. And so I think the Democratic Party is at a very perilous spot because they're not unified.
Yeah. I don't know how you say Biden's politically on life support. He won 15 of the last 20 states. And if you compare him to Bernie Sanders back in 2016.
I'm saying where McCain was in 2008, they were both relatively before they had their crucial victories of New Hampshire and South Carolina.
Either way, I think Biden right now is a very politically strong spot. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. 15 last 20 states going back to South Carolina. And even if you look at some of the thing that's interesting is look at some of the margins from 2016 to 2020 with Biden and Hillary Clinton. She lost Washington State by 46 points. Biden is going to win Washington State against Bernie Sanders, which is just incredible to even fathom at this point. Look at even some of the other states. North Dakota, the margin was drastically shrunk. Many states, Biden's a very good spot right now. No matter how you slice it. And this coronavirus thing, I don't want to say it helps him, but right now it's given an opportunity to seem presidential, and that's what he's been needing all along.
Right, I agree. Macomb County, Michigan, which has been a barometer, that the home of the Reagan Democrats. Hillary lost that county, third most populous in Michigan, and Joe Biden won it by 51%. That's kind of a
Bernie didn't win a single county in Michigan after winning a couple years ago.
Joe Biden has been running for president for 30 years, and the fact that it took 30 years for him to win one state in South Carolina, to me, speaks volumes about his true electability. The fact that he lost to Barack Obama, he lost every time he has run, he has significantly lost. In 1988, he lost because he was proven to be shown that he was plagiarizing people. So, and when you look at his debate performances, he comes across as frail. He doesn't know where he is sometimes in his speeches.
Let's wait for the debates to see.
And Hillary Clinton had a terminal disease in 2016. Right. Thank you, right-wing media.
Okay. Al, you're an expert on Capitol Hill. What do you think is going to happen? Well, you're an exceptional Capitol Hill reporter. What do you think is going to happen in the November elections in terms of the Senate and the House?
I think that's very interesting right now. I mean, the Senate right now, for example, the Democrats have had a very good last couple of weeks. I mean, you look at the big recruit was out of Montana. Governor Steve Bullock, he's running against Steve Daines out in Montana. That gives, if nothing else, that puts more money into that spot. That was a race that no one was talking about, at least as far as that being a possibility for Democrats to pick up. That's one of them. You look out in Arizona right now. Mark Kelly, I believe. He's doing really well against Senator Martha McSally. Former astronaut. He's doing really well out there. He's spending a lot of money. He's got all the support. And you look at across the country, Democrats are in a good spot in some of those, but the institutional advantages still are with Republicans. They still have a 3-seat advantage, likely 4 if you count Alabama. They got their anybody but Roy Moore through the primary recently. Yeah. So I think Republicans still have the advantage, but Democrats are looking good.
I agree with everything you said, but I think the Senate is in play because a lot of these these Republicans who are running, like Susan Collins and Tom Tillis, they have embraced Trump, and it's fine to embrace Trump when he's looking like he's popular and he's on his way to re-election. But when he looks like he's out of touch on a health crisis and he's not popular, embracing him is not the best place to be in the November election.
This
what can
coronavirus
change
is really,
from now?
This coronavirus is really throwing a loop in everything.
Exactly.
We have no idea where this is going to go from here.
Carrie.
I do agree with that statement in terms of things can change overnight. But in terms of the Senate, I think when you see people like Chuck Schumer who are going after the Supreme Court and saying, yes, but the fact that that spoke volumes to Republican foot soldiers as it relates especially to the Senate.
Apologize last for anything.
Well, I'm talking about
Very
Democrats
quick.
in the Senate. And as it relates to 2018, Republicans actually saw their margin go up in the Senate. So I think they're very well positioned, especially for people who are motivated to come out on issues around pro-life activism, because the Supreme Court, it is a very important issue. And to see the way they ruin Kavanaugh's life, it motivates people.
It looks pretty healthy to me.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.